Hello, everybody. This is Founder Laerun. I'm waiting on Lady Shel. We're going to do a show regarding Unity and the maps. So get rid of that delay or that echo. I had the audio feeding back into itself. Out of the classic Lost Mine of Fendover. I know I used the crap out of that module, but it really gives me the details I'm looking for to illustrate the class. So I'm really hoping that this will help you in your quest to learn to use Unity. This should be able to illustrate like how to set up your campaign folder, because when you first join a new session or create a new session, there is not a campaign folder yet. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go to, this is a blank campaign. I have no modules loaded. So I'm going to go ahead and in the library, I'm going to click all. So I have all the banners here. And I'm actually going to load just the SRD because I don't really need the whole frickin' rule set. So let me get to doing that. Let's see. So now that I have the modules folder over, I'm going to look for SRD. And here we have the bestiary, which I'll load that, and just the data. I don't think I'll need the magic items. And these are very minimal. They don't have a bunch of artwork, so it's not taking up any memory really. And then I'm going to look for Lost Mine. And I have some pre-gens here that I might as well load. These are ones that I created myself for that particular campaign. And then the module itself. So I went ahead and just went and loaded the library. So if you only own like a basic standard license and you don't have a lot of money for content, you can load Lost Mine of Fendover by itself, and it's pretty much self-contained. Although I would recommend that you probably load at least the SRD data, which is kind of like a very pared down basic player's handbook. That way, if you want to look up spells or anything, you get less errors and Fantasy Grounds won't yell at you. So I will go ahead and load those, which I've done. And in this particular case, in this module, Lost Mine of Fendover, in the DM series, I usually show how to use images through Classic. So I want to show you kind of a way that you can use this just like you would in Classic, but a little bit different. So the images that come with Lost Mine of Fendover, for the very first encounter, there is not generally a map for it. It was meant to be run as Theater of the Mind. Now, I myself prefer to have at least some sort of picture or something to look at. So when you go into maps in Fantasy Grounds in the new Unity beta, you can sort up here. So I'm in maps and images right now, and you can sort up here on the top where it says group. So I'm going to use this drop down, and I'm going to look at the different images. So there's some maps that come with Phandelver, but they are for all the other encounters, not the main one. So or the first one. The first one is the Goblin Ambush. So I'm going to open up the artwork that comes with Lost Mine. And in researching for the class and the the lesson, I found this item and I said, that's pretty cool, but I'm not going to show this during the game because this actually happens later. And then I saw a picture of these goblins. I said, cool, I might use that. So I would bookmark it. So you bookmark items by dragging this top left item and drag and dropping it into the hotkeys. So then I saw this photo, this Tribord Trail, and I said, hey, what do you know? So this actually can be used as your battle map if you wanted to. If you don't want to do Theater of the Mind, or maybe you can use this as Theater of the Mind, this is a good photo to start with. This is the Tribord Trail that takes place in that particular chapter 1 in the Goblin Ambush. So I showed this during my FGC college or Fantasy Grounds college classes, and this is a very good idea to use if you don't have a tactical map. So you have to have a grid on it, and that's so that your tokens will scale. So if you want to use this for a battle map, that's what I'm going to do. That is something you may want to look into. So what I'm going to do now is unlock the image. And now this in Unity, you have these map tools on the right-hand side. So I'm not going to be looking at doing line of sight or anything fancy. I'm just wanting to put a grid. So on the very top, there is a grid button. And when you click on that, it will bring you options. So right now it's default at 50 by 50. So I'm going to go ahead and click in the cell here and then click on the map image itself, and it will lay down a 50 by 50 grid. One nice thing about Fantasy Grounds now is you can change the color, so it's kind of hard to see that grid. So you can actually change the color of the lines. You can't change the thickness or the width of the lines, but you can certainly change the color. So I'm going to pick a color picker, and I'm going to go with this like bright kind of green color. Kind of goes with the mood of the game, but it also gives me better visibility. So now when I zoom out, I can see the image a little better. So you could use this technically as a battle map, even though it's not tactical. It kind of gives you a rough representation of where your characters are in space. So you can line up your goblins on the edges here, because it says in the encounter that 2 goblins are on either side of the road, so you can set that up, and then start your players on the bottom. So this is what I usually teach in the classes. So if you wanted to go beyond that, there is a way that you can import your own images, or you can even possibly potentially create your own from scratch from tiles. So which comes with Fantasy Grounds, which isn't fancy at all, but it is a way for you to do the same type of thing I'm showing here. So you have this map image, and I'm going to bookmark this. That way, in case I lose it. Now, the next methodology that you can use is on your party sheet. So if you open up the party sheet, I don't have any characters on here now, but if I go to the order tab and you set this up, you can actually use this as a way to create your own grid. So you can set up a grid on here and use this as similar as like I use the photo. So now you have a grid, and you can actually use this to put your goblins and your characters on, and you can even draw. So if I go into drawing mode, you can get in here and edit. I think the drawing mode's disabled right now, but yeah, there was a drawing mode that you can go into in Classic. But you can use this kind of like a kind of like a Hail Mary, or maybe you have to do this on the fly. So I need to get a couple characters on the table just so I can illustrate some of this stuff. So if I go to the combat tracker, I don't have anything in there yet. And in Fantasy Grounds right now, the things that are different are in the character selection. You don't have pre-gens right away, but if you click this import button, it will pull in characters that you have made regardless of which campaign you are in. So all the trial characters and anything you've created in the other games, you will have access to those characters. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in Hiena here. This is Lady Shel's character. And I can import this character and just click on Add Character. And it will add her character to the base, which is where you import and select characters from and to. Now I do have a character to pick. So when people join my table, they can grab this character. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this to the combat tracker, or you can make a copy of it, which I just did, is by drag and dropping it back in here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get rid of the copy. I just wanted to show you that. So if I double click on the character sheet, she already has a token, but I'm going to go ahead and grab some data. And in the data folder is the actual portrait. So since Lady Shel is a backer, I'm going to add her portrait. So if you are an early backer, like an alpha, Smiteworks offered to have your portrait added. It's kind of a permanent fixture to the game itself. So there's some base tokens. And this one's actually hers that she had commissioned. That's part of her package. And then I have one also. So that is her token. And now I'm going to drag this over and put it on the combat tracker. So that's the first step. Now, once she's on the combat tracker, I will add her to the party sheet. So I will drag this token here over to the party sheet onto the main tab. So now she's on the party sheet. So now when I go to order, you can have her character here, and you can drop it on these hexes here, or these squares. And that would be a way that you can use Fantasy Grounds as a way to kind of illustrate what's happening in combat. I put her as 1 because she's the only one. She's the first one in the watch order. If I delete her from here and I grab her from the combat tracker, it will somewhat track her, but it won't do targeting. There's a limitation to this, but if you drag her from here, it'll track a little bit better. And then you can also put your enemies on here. So for the other map that I had pulled up earlier, which was actually just a photo, I can drag her on here, and it'd be the same thing. And what you're looking for is to have this green area, which means you're friendly, and this is your threat zone around here. So any of these squares around her are part of her threat zone. So anyone who comes around her are subject to her melee weapons. Now, if you had a pole arm, it would be further, or if you had a longer reach. In this case, she's a dwarf, so I really doubt she has a longer reach. So he's always dragging you around, Lady Shel. Hey, Shel, what's going on? Hey, hold on a sec. Let me get you mic'd in here. I have you on mute. There you go. Hello. Welcome.
Hello.
So what I was doing is kind of showing the basic ways of bringing in maps. This is a way for you to utilize what you already have without having to resort to third-party maps. So I showed the photo thing method that I always use in my DM 101. And then I also showed the party tracker where you have that order side of it in which you can use that. So again, I was in the party sheet, and on the right-hand side is the order tab. And I could actually drag Lady Shel's token from the combat tracker and drop it in there and kind of use this as a rough map or in this case, I use the photo from Lost Mine of Phandelver to kind of give you a little bit more immersion. And when you're fiddling
Can I ask
around
you a
with,
question
sure,
about the party sheet? Is that like does it have an auto grid on it? It looks like that's gridded, and I don't know if you did that or if it's auto
actually,
gridded.
I had to add it in Unity. I don't know
Oh,
why
okay.
it's not auto, but it is in Classic. But for some reason in Unity, I had to add it manually.
Okay,
So there's
just
a little
wondering.
difference there. And you're able to size it too. So anyhow, I got Lady Shel's Hannah on this battle map or this marching formation sheet, and you can share this with your players if you want them to have access to this in the options. So I'm going to go to the options menu, and in the game master setting, you want to set it to, let's see, you're going to set it to show characters to clients. So party, which means party sheet, show characters to clients. I don't know why it doesn't say show order tab, because that's what you're doing. But in a sense, you're trying to show the characters that are in here to the characters that are on the table, to the players. So if you turn that on, your players will have access to this tab in the party sheet, and they'll be able to see what's going on. If you're just going to use this for yourself or theater of the mind as a game master, you don't have to share that with them. So this is an
But
optional thing.
why would you not want to share that with them? That seems like
I don't know. There's could
they
be
would
many
want.
reasons.
Hmm.
Maybe you're running it theater of the mind and you only want to run it out of the combat tracker, but
Oh,
you're going to use this for yourself to kind of get an idea of where they are in relationship to each other.
and as for the party sheet, the only two tabs that can be shared with players is the main tab and the inventory tab,
That
correct?
is correct. So that is one way that you can also, have and add maps on the fly. Also, if you get into the map area and you're getting all screwed up and getting confused, you got this thing way out here, you can right click on the map anywhere or on this field and you click view, and then there's a zoom to fit, and that will recenter the map. So that's a nice feature. They've simplified that, whereas before in Classic, you had to either zoom from horizontal or vertical. This one will just go to center.
I like that feature. I wish they did have it in Classic
So
because
did
it's
I.
very handy.
So this is one way that you can take care of your map needs if you're going to use them. Also the party sheet. So now the next thing I wanted to show is how do you add a map to an already existing campaign or to a new campaign? So are you ready for this, Shell?
I am ready. I know it's different than Classic because
Right.
Classic it was easy, and now it's a little more,
Little different.
little more deep.
Okay, so traditionally you would go to maps and images and you would just drag from your hard drive up to this list here and it would add the map. Now what they want you to do, when I say they, I'm talking about whoever set up Fantasy Grounds in the Unity edition, is first you want to make a new group just so you have an organization to it. So right now it's set to all. I'm going to click the edit button and click the plus button, and that's going to add a new group. This is a good habit to get into whenever you add custom content. So I'm just going to make a group called My Maps. I'm still in my Lost Mine of Phandelver campaign, but I want to keep a little separate area for anything that I add, especially with maps and images. So now I click the stop editing or the edit button again, and I've made my own group called My Maps. So now I have my own category. It's blank, but I'm getting it set up for my own images. So now what I'm going to do is click the edit list on the bottom, click this green plus button, and this creates a blank sheet for an image or a map or whatever it is. So I'm just going to put map up here for right now because I don't know exactly which map I'm going to grab. And once I do that, it's going to update. So I'm going to lock it for a second and it will update the name of the title and it will create this secondary, which is your ID area. So in this case, I'm going to say map Lost Mine of Phandelver. I'm using the acronym. Goblin Ambush. See, this is for me. This is for the Game Master. On this cell here, this is what the players will see. So if I click the ID button, they can no longer see that title. All right, so I'm going to name this Tribord Trail. Because that's what I want the players to see. I don't want them to see this goblin boss or... So Tribord Trail is what I want them to see. I don't want them to see this goblin ambush. So when I share this image, which is done by right-clicking up here on the top left, you right-click on it and you click Share Sheet. Once you do that, it just makes this public. When you make it public, your players can see that. And if you don't remember to turn on or off the ID tag, they will be able to see the true name of the map instead of the title. So this is what I'm going to use, just this blank surface here, to add my maps to it. So right now I just have a blank area. And right now I don't have anyone added to the table yet. So I can click on this little P here, which is for public, and that will erase the connectivity to the players, and it won't push the map to them anymore. It'll actually unshare it. So I don't need to have it shared right now. I don't even have anyone connected. So do we have any questions yet so far? Nope. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is go to my assets folder. And generally the assets that are in there that you start with are the assets that come from different modules, different settings, different things that you've purchased over time. Some of you may not have hardly anything. Some of you might have a ton of things. Just depends on which content you've purchased. So there are 3 or 4 buttons up here on the top. You have tokens, you have portraits, you have images, and then you have all. So when you're working with maps, you want to make sure that you're on the images button, which is separate than portraits and tokens. That is very important to remember that. So when you're looking for token, make sure you're in the tokens area. If you want to add or manage your specific portraits for your characters, make sure you're in the correct folder. And for images, same thing. Now, when you come to this area for the first time and you haven't really done anything or added anything custom, you will not have a campaign folder. There will not be any campaign folder here at all. And that's because it's assuming that you're going to be using the images that already come with your particular module. So if you wanted to add something or create or build something, you need to add images to the images folder within your campaign. And how that is achieved is by clicking on this folder button, which is on the very bottom left in the center here. And this is where your folder is that goes to your hard drive. So when I click on this, I'm not going to show you my hard drive, but it's going to take me to the folder. So I have a folder on my computer. It's an app data, roaming, Smiteworks, Fantasy Grounds, campaign. So it's in the campaigns folder. And I called this campaign map stuff D&D 5e. And then there's an images folder. So what I'm going to do is go to my hard drive and I'm going to look for a map for Lost Mine. And in this case, this is a third-party map that I purchased through Game Tile Warehouse. This is Chris's Lost Scrolls series, in which he's redone a lot of the Lost Mine of Phandelver maps. So I'm going to utilize one of his maps. Okay, so I'm looking on my hard drive for a map that was redone or actually reimagined. And the reason I didn't have this all set up beforehand is because I want to kind of show you how it works. Otherwise, I would have had the map already set up. So within the Lost Scrolls, there are a bunch of buildings and things that Chris had detailed. So what I'm going to do is drag or copy and paste one of the maps in this case. So this is the Goblin Ambush map. And I'm going to copy and paste it and put it in the images folder in my campaign folder. So once I do that, in the images and maps folders, now there is a bag here called campaign. So that will not show up unless you actually put some assets or images in your campaign folder. So this campaign folder does not exist until you add your own content. So is there any questions about that? Okay.
Nope.
So does that make sense to you?
Yeah, but I wish it was still the old way because the old way was a lot easier.
Yeah, maybe they'll change it over time, but this is how it works. So now when you double click on your campaign folder, you will get a thumbnail of whatever images you put in there. And you can also put subfolders, which is nice. You couldn't do that in the Classic. This one you can actually put thumbnails of within folders, so you can click on another folder and it'll have thumbnails of all your access. Whereas the other one in Classic, you had to open the image to see
Right,
what it
you just
was.
had the text
Yes,
version of it.
correct.
Yeah.
So it's good in that regard. So now that I have this map here, I'm going to drag and drop it into this new map that I made. Now I could have technically just dragged this over and drop it into my maps, but I wanted to label it and to get it set up. The other thing I could also do is get ready with the grid, but I'm going to wait till I put the map on. So the first thing I'm going to do is worry about the grid once I put it over there. So I'm going to drag and drop it. It's going to take it a second to open it because it's a really big file. So this map here is huge. So I'm zooming out. It's a pretty good sized map.
Wow, that is really close up.
And it's detailed. And if you detail and you pull in, you can really see the leaves and the sunshine on the plants. So this is a very highly detailed map. So what's missing, Lady Shel?
The grid?
That's right. So the first thing you want to do is put the grid on it. And I'm going to slap this down at 200 pixels per inch, which is really big. But 200 is the suggested scale for this particular map. So for every inch or every square, there's 200 pixels instead of 50. And that's how you're able to retain the quality. So Unity can handle bigger maps. The problem with this is I can't share it with my players because this would be too huge to be transferring over the internet.
Do you think that that would be a problem like the map that we had the other night, but when we were in Classic?
Yeah, maybe even worse because it depends on the player's bandwidth. If their bandwidth sucks, then this is going to take them like 5 minutes to download. So I wouldn't do that to them. I would probably take this map and kind of take some of the quality out of it and then make it part of that. So this is basically something you have to keep in mind when you bring in new images. You need to know roughly what the dots per inch are, the DPI. That determines your resolution. In this case, I know it's 200 because it's full resolution image. So now that I have that, this is how I added this new image. So now I'm going to run my encounter from here instead of the other makeshift ones. So once I have this on here, I'm going to recenter it by right clicking, click zoom to fit. I want to resize the image itself so I don't have to keep moving this around. And I'm going to go ahead and change the color of the grid. So I'm going to go ahead and change the color to like a kind of a, I guess a pinkish color, pinkish purple. That
You
way I can
read my
see.
mind. I was going to suggest pink.
Yeah, it's kind of a pinkish purple color, so I can see it. And then when I put Lady Shel's character Hannah on here, it actually scales to that. And if I want to scale her character, I have to lock the map and I can scale it up a little bit. That way it's not too tiny. And then I go to play mode, which is the dice. And then if you're going to use line of sight, you'd have to enable it. In this case, being this is outdoors, the only thing I'd probably do is put terrain tools on the forest. And that'd probably be the most I would do with this. There's no need
That
of,
looks really detailed
yeah,
because it goes in and out and everything, and there's some paths, and yeah, I wouldn't want to LOS.
nah. The only thing you'd probably do is just put a, a line around the edge of the woods. So if you go into the forest, you can click on it and clear the light. Because it'd be kind of hard to see through the forest if it's that thick. So I'd probably make this thing a big island. I wouldn't even bother trying to get all the little nooks and crannies. But I would leave these trails open. But all the little nooks and crannies, I might leave those the way they are. But then again, these could be spots where the goblins are hiding too. Because in this encounter, the goblins are hiding on both sides of the road. So this would be a good hiding spot for them. And whoops. So, and then down here on the southern part, there's some spots where they can hide as well. So you can set those ahead of time. So that would just be a way that you can set this map up to be your own setup and not have to rely just on the images that are within the module. So custom tokens, custom maps, it can be done. If you do have tokens that you want to use for your players, you go to assets, you go to tokens, which it is already at default there, and then you'll either do a search or you look for the folder that contains your particular tokens. So there's an arrow at the bottom. So don't be fooled. Even though this is only showing 50 items or whatever, there's still an arrow here for next page. And this will take me to my next group of stuff.
Yeah, because looking at that, it looks like it, because there's only two on that bottom
Mm-hmm.
line. It looks like that's it.
Right, but you have these arrows, so you have a ton of assets. Make sure you look at these arrows so that you can get to the rest of your content. So I'm looking for Bernardo's thing that he made. I know I have the folder in here somewhere. So instead of doing that, I'm going to do a search. And then there's another way that you can sort. So instead of by this kind of view, you can go to a list view. And that changes it like this. So you can go down the list and look that way. And you still have to go through the arrows. Letter tokens, Laerun's collection. There's some Meander tokens. So as you can see, you go through these and you can look through here in a different view. And then I can search up here for Bernardo because that's the folder I put it in. So it's in data, Bernardo's tokens, and then angels and Azimar, or creature tokens. So if I go here, here are the creature tokens that he made. And then I can click this plus button and that will actually make these larger. So you don't have to mess around with trying to zoom in so much. You can do it right here. And you'll be able to see the tokens
Aboleth and Chol. Seems like
better.
that would make a Choboleth to me. And for anyone watching this wondering what the heck I'm talking about, we made some aquatic NPCs, and we made one that was part chol, part aboleth, and we called it a choboleth.
So I have also a folder with some dwarves. So let me zoom back out. So here's some dwarven ones. Change the view. So these are pretty nice. Dwarf Celestial, Dwarven Battle Rager, War Pig. And then you have a mounted version of the Dwarf Knight on the War Pig. There's a
Battle Rager could be Uncle
Yep, Uncle Haglin.
Haglin.
Yep. So there you go. There's how you get to your tokens, and then if you wanted to switch out token on the character sheet, you just grab one of these tokens and drag it, and now it replaces it. But in this case, this is Lady Shel's token basically. So I put it back. So that is how you do that. So for portraits, it's kind of the same thing. You go to data, and then you're going to have all these different portrait photos. And this is a custom made one that I made. And if you had any others, like packs,
Demita.
yeah, what do you know? Um, like here's some stuff from the Eberron setting. So these are where you would put those. And you don't want to make them too huge because they're only going to display in this small little square here. So these are roughly about 100 by 100. That's why they look so pixelated. So that's something you want to be careful of. So that is basically how you would add a map to your setting, custom. So if you're going to add a map, create a place for it in the actual maps area. And I made a group, and then I started a new blank, and then I added the photo from the assets from here. Now, if you want to add anything else, you can.
It is possible to just drag it into a blank thing, though, right? I mean, you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to name it before you put
Correct.
it. Okay, because that's the way that I dragged mine. I just dragged it into an opening.
Mm-hmm.
I opened the blank sheet and just dragged it into there, and
So
I
let's
didn't name it.
say you wanted to add some rain. So if you're
Oh,
going to add,
sure, rain on me in the forest here.
yep. So what we're going to do is go to the effects on the very bottom of this particular pane here where all the tools are and click effects. And what that does is it adds this effects line up here. Now I'm going to go to the effects folder, select the effects from the layers, and this time I'm going to add rain, and now it's raining. I'm going to add another effect for some clouds, which is actually mist. And then I'm going to add that layer on top of the rain, and I'm going to select mist, which is kind of like a cloudiness. Could be passing rain or something. And then I'm going to change the view so it's centered. There we go. There's the rain effect with some clouds going over the top. Now, if you wanted to add something permanent, I think there's some dead horses in this particular encounter. So what I'm going to do now is go to my assets, and I am going to go to images because not tokens. I want actually images because they're going to be static. They're not going to be moving. So I search for dead, and I don't have anything here. But if I was smart, I would have looked ahead of time and found if I had any dead horses. So I have some pictures of horses, but I don't actually have dead horses. So I'm going to go on my hard drive and take a look at this. All right, so I found some dead horses on my hard drive, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that dead horse to my assets folder in the campaign itself. I don't necessarily want it available no matter which setting I'm in, so I'm just going to add it to the campaign assets folder. So what I'm going to do
Did
now,
Chris make that too?
no, the dead token comes from, I want to say, I know it's from the DM's Guild, from that pack that you get, the maps that he made.
Venitus
Yeah,
maps?
I think it's him. The guy, his name is Derek. I think that's him. So instead of doing this, I'm going to go to my campaign folder, and I'm going to drag the asset into here, or I can make a subfolder in the folder section. So I'm going to make a subfolder. So I don't have anything in there yet because I haven't added the image. I made the folder, but I haven't added the dead horse yet.
So these get added just like the map.
Yep, exactly.
Cool. I did not know that. I thought you just
No,
I don't
you
know.
add them
I
to the
don't know
same.
why I thought they were like
Well, that's okay. I mean, it's new. All right, so from my hard drive, I am getting into my assets folder, and there is a wagon and a couple dead horses. Now, when I go to my assets folder, it will update with the subfolder. So here, now I have a folder called Asset Picks. If I go in here, here is the cart, and here are the two dead horses now. But before I add them, I want to make sure that I'm in layer mode. So I'm going to unlock this map, and I'm going to stop the effects for right now. So I'm just going to set the visibility to where I can't see them for a bit. That way it doesn't distract me when I'm trying to place these. So I'm going to put the wagon on here, and it's going to be in layer mode. So I'm going to be in a layer, and instead of just dragging it and dropping it, I'm going to put it as a stamp. So now it's in stamp mode instead of just regular layer selection mode. So now what I can do is I can rotate this if I need to get it to the position I want before I stamp it. You can also recolor it a little bit. So if you wanted to put different color fade on it, you could come in here and mess the colors if you wanted. Also the scale, you can adjust the scale. I will leave that until I understand how big it is or how small it is in relationship to the rest of the map. So I'm going to place it right about here. So I'm in stamp mode, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the road somewhere. That's not too bad. It's pretty close, but I think it looks a little bit small. So what I'm going to do is click on the width and the height, and I'm going to go with like 4.2, I think, because right now it's 3.8.
you're making Hannah looks like Godzilla or something. She's super big compared to the wagon.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. If you want to stretch manually, you can. You have to hold the shift key. But you can easily screw it up. So if that happens, you can right click on here and you can delete it. or you can select this layer, and then you will click the garbage can on the bottom right.
You know what it needs? It needs a thing that says like set scale or something.
Well, that's what this is
Well,
up here.
actually, yeah. If you change the numbers, it scales it correctly rather
So
than
you can just
dragging it.
drop it on the map, and then you can change your width here. So I'm going to go with 5.
She still looks a little big.
Well, I just
I mean,
upped
she couldn't
this.
even ride one of those horses.
Well,
Poor
these are
thing would
oxen.
collapse. Oh, okay. Well, one of those oxen.
And then if you're
Well,
not
that's
comfortable
better.
with dragging this around, you can change the degree of the angles. So there's a 45 degree. You can go with 180, or you can hold shift and drag it around.
Yeah, that's a lot better than messing with the little dots and messing stuff up. Possibly. Yeah, that
Yep.
it still looks a little bit small. Maybe just a little bit bigger. What is it
Okay.
at now? 6 point what? Maybe
It's
like
at 5.1.
5.1. Maybe make it 6.
That's 5.5. 5.7. And there's your 6.
Yeah, I like 6 because
Okay.
then it looks like she's about scaled right to
Mhm.
compared to the oxen and stuff.
That's
That
right.
she could sit in the seat and she wouldn't look like she's taking up the whole room because
That's
she
right.
doesn't have a fat butt.
So if you
That's
want
this
this to,
chainmail.
yeah, so if you want this to stay in place and not move, you go to that layer and you lock it. So now I can no longer lock this. Same thing with the map underneath. I'm going to lock the position. That way you don't accidentally move it around.
And you can always tell which one is locked by seeing the red.
Yes, there'll be some
It
red
turns
dots.
red.
Now I'm going to put the dead horses over here. So I'm going to drag and drop them onto the map and rescale them. So here's one here. Here's the other one. So they do look pretty tiny. So the first one is at 2. So I'm going to go with 5 at least, maybe even 6. Now that's way too big. So I'm going to go with 4.
Oh my gosh, that's just a little too big.
3.5 looks good. Maybe 3. All right. So that's better. What do you think?
Yep, it looks about right to me. They look about the same size as the oxen, which they should.
Yeah. All right. So now what I'm going to do is find some blood. So these horses have been dead for about a day. So I'm going to find some blood.
And it better be dark, not bright red.
Right. So what I'm going to do is take this and I'm going to go to my assets again, which is, in this case, I'm just in my campaign folder. So I'm going to go up because I need to go to my upper level of stuff that I have already. So I'm looking for blood under images, and here's some blood splatters. So,
Didn't Doug suggest you use the stamp for it?
exactly.
Yeah, I see some of the blood looks darker. That's perfect.
So what I'm going to do is take this blood and put it in the stamper. Go to stamp mode, and then I'm just going to click around the horses, and then I can move the stamps down on different layers if I need to. So here's the blood on the floor here.
Do you have to put a new layer before? No, you want it to be underneath
Hmm.
the
Right. So
horse,
what I'm gonna
right?
do, yeah, I just laid them down for right now, and I'm gonna put one here, but I'm gonna make it a little bigger and see what happened. Is it created error? So hold on. Okay. So rather than messing around with dragging it, I can actually change it to 1 because it was at 0.6. So now I have a little bit bigger blood puddle, and now what I'm going to do is drag them underneath the horses by the layers. So I'm in layer mode.
Are you just like dragging it
Hmm.
down?
Yep.
Oh, that's cool. Can I add another thing that I want on the map? Just to make it more difficult? I want some. Oh, they have goblin arrows in it. Never mind. I didn't see that they had the arrows in them. Were these the same horse, or were they two? They were two different horses, weren't they? Because they're
Yes.
positioned a little different. And I noticed they do have the black feathers, and I believe that's what it said that the goblins used the arrows with the black feathers on it.
Yep.
One of these days, I've got to play through Lost Mine Fandelver. I've only played like the beginning like 3 different times, and it's like the DM always uh, quits or something happens, the group breaks up. I never get
Right.
past a certain point, and it's so annoying because the story is very cool.
So this horse, I can place it on top so it looks more, it gives you the illusion that it's actually dead. So there we go. And then once they're there, once you have them, you can lock them.
Can you put any blood like on the horse, like on?
It won't
You
look
know what I
right.
mean?
It's not
No,
contoured
because
correctly
it's okay.
because it's flat.
Rilva says that I want a bear rug.
We probably have one. So now turn the mist back on, but I want to put them on the upper layer. Right now they've been pushed down. So
So
the
now you're
rain,
dragging them back up.
yep, there we go. And there we go. There is the scenario recreated with custom assets. Then all you need is a couple goblins and you're good to go. And the rest of the party. So it takes a little extra prep, but it's definitely cool. And this is how it looks when you're done. So you're putting in a custom map instead of using Theater of the Mind or the other two solutions I gave you. So the map was made by Chris, and the tokens were assets from Venatus Maps, which is on the DM's Guild. So that's pretty much all I had to show for today, unless someone else wants to see anything else.
Other than cow, not cow. Oh yeah, Rilva said more cowbell too.
Or cowbell. Yeah, he was watching me work on music the other day. So what's up? Anybody need any other tips or help? We're going to put this up on YouTube, and hopefully this content will help get people to not be afraid and to kind of mess around with Unity, at least until it's out full. So just remember, as of this date, this is May 6, 2020. So if you're watching this video and it's 3 years later, I'm sure that it's changed quite a bit since then. But the basic principles should still be good. Um, Fantasy Grounds has a little bit of work to do, but once they're done and it's released, I'm sure you'll be the first one to know. But anyhow, that is basically how you add a custom asset and add different features to it. You don't have to have a line of sight for every single map that you have. And it kind of wouldn't make sense because this map is a daytime map. So it kind of doesn't quite fit the script. Although you
Mm,
could put terrain on the trees themselves since you can't really see through them.
right.
But other than that, there would really be no reason to put line of sight.
By the way, did you give the disclaimer at the beginning of the
Nope,
stream?
I'm giving it now. That this
Okay,
is
good.
a Fantasy Grounds Beta Unity, and all the things that you see here are subject to change. This is not the full version of Unity yet. This is the beta. So thank you, Shell, for joining me last minute. And I'm going to go eat my dinner now since that's going to be ready.
Well, enjoy your dinner. And thanks for coming, people in chat. It was good
Yep.
to see ya.
Good to see you guys. You take care. Happy gaming.
Bye bye.